All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the For the Cap podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping the Warriors versus Hornets game. So, in this game, we're going to be recapping some of the defensive stuff in regards to the point of attack defense and some of the off-ball defense in terms of the attention to detail and preventing defensive breakdowns. And then we're going to flip it to the offensive end where it was just a collective effort from everybody outside of Steph, and we were able to hang up almost 140 points. So pretty much in this game, Charlotte's a weird team. Like, they're probably the worst team in the league, if you understand what I'm talking about. Like, they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of really good players, but they don't exactly have any of the connectivity that brings them together as a team. Like, LaMelo Ball, super talented. Like, he's built weird in the sense that, like, he's like a quick guard, but he's like 6'7" with a ton of fluidity and wiggle. And then Brandon Miller, he's a very athletic 6'8" wing. You have Con Knipple, who's he's like the next reincarnation of Klay Thompson, a very fundamentally sound player. And then you go down the roster and you see Colin Sexton, you see even Trey Mann, who doesn't really get a whole lot of clock. He's also a really good player as well. So the Hornets, they have all of these like young, athletic, talented players. They just don't have things that can piece them together. So for us, I thought defensively, we just struggled per usual to guard at the point of attack. Like guys like GP2, Moody, Will Richard, they just succumb to the same issues that every other athletic team presents to our team. And it's the fact that they're just so much quicker and so much more athletic at the point of attack. And specifically, I want to single out GP2. GP2 looks every bit as cooked as he can look defensively. Like, this guy cannot move laterally to save his life. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to say that, like, his prime version was only like 4 years ago. And ever since 2022, he has not been able to regain that same form that he had in that year that we won the chip. Like, it's crazy. Like, these players that are beating GP2 off the dribble, they're not even great players. They're not players that are like some of the best players in the league that torches everybody. No, these are like some of the more like mid-tier level stars that just does GP2 crazy every single time they match up against him. And then, Moses Moody, he has trouble staying in front of everybody. Like, one of the things I pointed out in the last podcast was the fact that Moses Moody, he plays defense in a way that's never going to make him be a good defender, because he opens up his hips and he invites the offensive player to get downhill almost every single time. And the reason, I don't know what the reason is, but the reason why that affects his ability to play defense overall is because he just doesn't understand the angles he needs to take to recover. Either that's a scheme thing or that's the thing with his personnel, I don't know. But the point is, that strategy is just not working. And he has trouble staying in front of Brandon Miller. He even had trouble staying in front of Con Knipple. And Knipple's not even a great athlete like that. We already know, like, he does a good job of masking his athleticism. Con Knipple, he plays off of 2 feet. He uses his footwork very well, but he does not have any first step quickness. And for some reason, Moses Moody still can't stay in front of him. And then something that's even more of an issue is just the fact that I don't think the Warriors' defensive communication is all there. Like, part of the Charlotte Hornets' offensive scheme is to run a lot of guard ghosts. So if you don't know what that means, it basically means whenever a guard has the ball, another guard is going to run up and act like he's going to set a screen, but in reality, he's just going to fake the screen and he's going to pop out. And hopefully, what the whole point of doing that is to pretty much cause a confusion. So either two will stay with the ball or two will stay with the screener, and that's where you have a lot of defensive breakdowns. But, although it's hard to guard a ghost action in general, I think the Warriors, they don't help themselves because they don't communicate whether or not they should switch or they should stay, or if there's no contact on the screen, then don't switch at all. Whatever the case may be, I think the Warriors, they don't communicate, they don't practice and drill stuff like this enough. Because, if you talk about this behind closed doors, under practices, under team meetings, then when you get to a game-like situation like this, you can defend those type of actions easier. But the Warriors, they don't do that. And there was a lot of instances in this game where it's like 2 was flying to the ball for no reason. 2 was flying to the screener for no reason. And, that created a lot of like 2-on-1s. And LaMelo Ball, for an example, he was able to get rid of the ball relatively easily. And then a guy like Grant Williams, who, he was functioning more as a connective playmaker in this game, he was able to make a lot of plays and even finished a couple of plays. And I thought things like that have to be prevented. And, another thing is just staying attached to shooters. So the Warriors, they don't have a lot of good screen navigators. A lot of guys don't stay attached enough to shooters coming off the ball. Like they die on too many screens. Like the guard rotation on this team, everybody just gets screened and nobody can recover. And when you watch the game back, like you'll see so many guys who are just late. Like they're like a few steps behind and the shooter's already having like heaps of separation and they're getting ready to get into their shot. And meanwhile, our guard is still chasing. Like he's nowhere near the shooter. And then what that does is that it forces the 5-man to have to now come up and take away the shot. So for an example, that would be Draymond Green if he was guarding the center, and let's say Moses Moody, he's like late coming around the screen. Now Draymond has to step up because Moody couldn't do his job by staying attached. And it's not just Moses Moody. Another person that is a big culprit of this issue is Will Richard. Now, Will Richard is my guy. He's my rook. I completely believe in his potential. I know he's going to be a great player for the Warriors long term. And although he has flashed a lot of good in his game, a lot of strengths that the Warriors can absolutely use, as the season has gone on, we've been able to see more and more of who Will Richard is as a basketball player. And we've seen more and more of his holes, in his game when it comes to being, a rotational player. And one of the holes that he has is the fact that he has trouble staying attached. He will die on screens. He'll be late coming around screens. And sometimes he won't even know where he's at. Like there's times where he's defending off the ball and he won't pay attention that his guy has cut along the baseline, or he doesn't have any clue whether, he's guarding that guy or the other guy, or he'll point switch and realize that the guy that he's guarding is not even supposed to be his guy. So there's a lot of issues in his game in terms of off-ball defense. On-ball defense, he does a good job of pressuring the ball, but there's times where he's a little too over-aggressive and he allows the offensive player to get downhill too easily. So, what he brings to the table, it's nice. It's absolutely needed. Like, he's a great defensive playmaker. Like, for being a rookie, the 56th overall pick, for him to make defensive plays the way that he does, it's big time. He does it on and off the ball. The closing speed that he has in terms of closing gaps in passing lanes, for a rookie, it's tremendous. And then on the ball, he has a knack for being able to time the offensive player's dribble. Like, it's similar to how GP2 would do it. It's similar to how Moses Moody would do it. And he does it the same way. And I think if he was to play more, he would literally like be similar to like an OKC type of player, where like they have active hands and they could pretty much, they have a nose for like making plays on the ball. And all of that is nice, but it's just the little things with Will Richard on defense off the ball that needs to be fixed, because he does a good job of playing with a ton of motor, but in terms of playing from point A to point B, he's got to make sure that the process stays smooth from start to finish. He can't have any lapses in between, or else it's gonna affect his minutes. It's gonna affect the way Coach Kerr wants to use him. And then another thing that I will say about him is that he does a good job of displaying motor in terms of crashing the glass. Like if you watch him play, he's always crashing the glass. But the issue is he's 6'4" and he's never really coming up with those rebounds. And it's a good thing that you're crashing. It's a good thing that you're looking to get your team an extra possession. But you also have to think about how if you're crashing and most of the time you're not getting the rebound, now you're putting your team in a position where they have to recover. It's a 5-on-4 going the other way. And the fact that you tried to crash and you didn't come up with the board, or you didn't at least back tap it to a teammate, now you're putting your team in a predicament. So Will Richard, in conclusion, does a lot of great things, but he's still raw in a lot of different parts of the game. So all in all, in terms of defense, like I don't even think the Warriors are like a bad defensive team in terms of like personnel. Like even though yes, like we know they can have point of attack issues, they actually have more issues in regards to like communication and doing the basic stuff, like making sure you switch properly, making sure you communicate, etc. They have more problems towards that than actually, defending individually as a team. Like there was a lot of off-ball fouls in this game, and I think the reason why is because, they were trying to make sure that they didn't have any sort of mistakes defending those like guard-to-guard actions. And, I think against this Hornets team, it's not that bad for you to like switch, like for an example, like Steph onto the offensive player, just because, it's Charlotte. It's not like a team. It's not like Denver or like an uber good offensive team that can really like light you up. So yeah, and then switching over now to the offensive end, the way Charlotte was guarding Steph was so funny, man. Like, did you see the way? What's the dude's name? The dude that looks like Aaron Nesmith that was guarding Steph. I don't know what his name is. I think it's like Sion James or something like that. Bro, as soon as tip off, like we won the tip off, and as soon as the game started, the dude literally pressured Steph and didn't even allow him to do anything. Like he was face guarding Steph, and we was pretty much playing 4-on-4. Like they didn't want Steph to be involved in the game at all. And like it's truly fascinating because at the age of 37, soon to be 38, Steph Curry is being guarded like no other. Like it's funny, like so many NBA fans want to say like, oh, nobody gets guarded like this, or X player never gets guarded like this, or that player never gets guarded like this. And it's like, bro, the two players that only get guarded differently in NBA history that I have ever seen is number one, Steph Curry, and number two, James Harden. Steph Curry, he gets guarded in a way where like they're literally either one, face guarding him, or two, they're top locking him where they don't want him anywhere near the basketball. They would rather give him a backdoor layup than for him to come off a screen and shoot a three, because they know how deadly him coming off the screen is. And then James Harden, in his prime, like especially like 2018, 2019, like Houston Rocket days, the Utah Jazz, when they were playing him, they was literally playing him. They were playing behind him just so he can't shoot a step back three. That's different. I've never seen anything like that. So props to James Harden for being guarded differently, just like Steph. But everyone else, like in terms of like some of the best players in the game today, like I've never seen KD being guarded like that. I've never seen LeBron get guarded like that. I've never seen Giannis, Jokic, Luka, like none of these guys get guarded the same way like Steph. And Steph, like it's further proof that like Steph at his best is literally the greatest offensive weapon in the game. No other player is more dangerous than Chef Curry. And with the way that Charlotte was guarding Steph, it was very hard for Steph to really get into a rhythm, and it was hard for the team overall to play a good offensive game, considering, Steve Kerr continues to play Steph with GP2 and Draymond Green. And with the way that they was guarding Steph, like they were top locking him and just sagging off of Draymond, and it doesn't really matter what type of offense you run, like eventually the ball is going to always end up in Draymond's hands because, you know, if you run him off the ball and they're top blocking him and Draymond has literally wide open 3-point looks, like the lane is just too clogged for you to do anything else. And then if you give Steph the ball and then you have him play pick and roll with Draymond, they're just going to blitz Steph and Steph just has to pass it to Draymond. And credit to Draymond, he stepped up. He was taking shots. He was making wide open shots. He was doing what he was supposed to do. And whenever Steph, whenever he draws two to the ball, the only thing I'm thinking about is like, the team just needs to do their job. If the team does their job, meaning either make a play or finish the play, so either making a shot or dunking the ball or making the extra pass, whatever the case may be, your job is easy because Steph has already created an advantage for you to do what you need to do. And the team did that. Draymond did do that. And, you know, Draymond, I don't think he anticipated to get the frequency of looks that he got today. And credit to him, man. Like, you know, we have been trashing Draymond for the last few weeks, but in this game, he stepped up big time. Without him, we wouldn't have won this game. But something that needs to be talked about even more now is the fact that the second unit is hooping. And the second unit was actually playing better than the starters, and they were playing better without Steph on the floor. Now, that doesn't, that doesn't mean that Steph wasn't helping them, you know, win the game. Like, it wasn't a case where, like, Steph being on the floor made the Warriors worse. No. The reason why the Warriors played better without Steph was because of simply how the Hornets were guarding Steph. Because, again, like I said earlier, everything would have ended up in Draymond's hands. And you don't want Draymond taking shots. But as soon as Steph is off the floor, now the defensive scheme is different. Now their base scheme, with Jimmy being out as well, they don't really know how to, gear their game plan towards the second unit. Because usually, like, Steph would sit and, like, the other team, they would, gear their defensive game plan towards Jimmy Butler. But with Jimmy out, there's no one to really anchor their defensive game plan around. But one person that took advantage of that is De'Anthony Melton. Melly has been so good. He's been so good in these last few games. And, he's taking on the challenge of, like, stepping into a bigger role than he initially signed up for on this team. Because in the offseason, when we re-signed him, he was supposed to be another just off-ball player, like another secondary ball handler, another guy that would, like, complement Steph and not really be on the ball too much. But ever since he came back from his injury, he's actually been the backup point guard. Because usually Pods would be the backup point guard, but Pods, we already know he's not a point guard. And Melly, he's been on the ball much more, and he's doing great work on the ball. Like, he's been able to give the team, like, good pick and roll creation. Like, he's been able to, like, find guys on the ball, and, he's been displaying the one thing that the team needs that they didn't have for so long, which is rim pressure, dribble penetration. Like, it's so refreshing. It literally brings joy to my face that we have a player on this team that can get to the rim. As a player myself who loves getting to the rim, I know how valuable of a skill that is needed for a team. And De'Anthony Melton is literally doing that for the Warriors. Like, his ability to be able to have, like, that same wiggle that I was talking about with LaMelo Ball, like, he has an underrated handle to where, he can beat guys off the dribble with his first dribble, but, like, be able to, like, sneak through tight driving angles, if that makes any sense. Like, there was a possession, I think it was in the second half, where Melton, he was dribbling, and he was, like, I think he split through, like, two defenders in, like, a tight gap and got all the way to the rim. And that type of skill, like, no other guard on our team can do that, including Steph Curry. Like, Steph can still get to the rim, but Melly, he gets to the rim in a way more natural fashion than Steph. Steph, he uses the third of his jump shot to get to the rim, or he's just, like, back cutting off the ball. But Melly, he's, like, intentionally, like, winning the first dribble and, like, getting 2 feet into the paint and finishing at the rim. Like, that possession to end the third quarter, where, like, he aggressively attacked Colin Sexton, who's a great athlete, and he was staying with Melly in every step of the way, and Melly hit him with a counter dribble, and he like stuck his shoulder into Colin Sexton's chest and got the and one, and that's like a grown man type of drive. Like that's a drive where Melly like forced his way to the basket. No other player on this team can do that, and Melly's doing that every step of the way, and I'm just so happy for him because, you know, he hasn't been healthy in 2 years. He comes back and he's literally the second best guard on this team. I mean, he's done wonders for Pods as well. Pods had a good game today, and he's been having good games because of Melly. Like, there was a possession where Melly, he drove to his left on like the right wing, and he kicked the ball out to Pods. Pods relocated from, you know, the left wing to like the left 45 area, and he got a wide open three. And that's the position that Pods needs to be in to succeed. He can't be on the ball, so that's why you put Melly on the ball, and now Pods, he can work as a secondary ball handler or a spotted player. And, you know, Melly, he's a special player. He truly is. Like, if the guy was healthy, easy $20 million type of player. Like, if he didn't have any of these issues, there's no way the Warriors would have been able to get their hands on him, because he's so good as a basketball player that like teams would have easily swooped in. And, you know, he's going to get paid this summer, and I don't know how we're going to be able to clear. Well, obviously I do, but I don't know how the Warriors front office is going to be able to come to the conclusion of trying to clear space for Melly. Unless, I think if Melly keeps hooping, then they're not gonna have any choice. But obviously, if you ask Warrior fans are gonna want to keep him. So yeah, props to Melly. And then let's see, a couple of other players that I want to speak on for a second. Quinton Post. Now, QP has been getting exposed in the last few games. So obviously, in the beginning of the season, there's been a lot of posts on graphics of QP like leading, you know, the NBA in like top 3, top 5 defensive rating, and everyone else is like OKC Thunder players, and he was the only one on a team that had like, you know, a top 10 defensive rating. And, you know, everybody was like, they were gassed about it. Like, they were like, whoa, like QP like could actually defend like that. And then you watch the tape and you could see like, yeah, he could actually defend like that. But then, you know, in the last like few games or so, you've been seeing a lot of holes in his defense that he still needs to address. And one of the things that I talked about in previous podcasts is the fact that QP, he knows what he can do best and what he can't do best. So for an example, if he's deep in the paint, right, like especially if he's guarding the pick and roll, if he's deep in the paint, he knows how to get big. He knows how to wall people up and defend the paint despite being a bad athlete, despite not being a natural shot blocker. He's a good rim protector because he knows how to alter shots. But whenever he's put in positions where he has to step up higher on the ball screen, that's where he struggles, because, you know, against quick and athletic players that can beat him quickly, he has issues like recovering. He has issues with that like fast twitch recovery where, you know, he can like move his hips and like and recover in a way where he can still defend the rim. Like, for an example, Al Horford, he's much better at doing that than QP, because if you watch Al Horford, like in transition, he can move and stay with like smaller players. He'll give them room, and then he'll like rise up and block shots. Like, he's still such a very good shot blocker for being the age that he is, 40 years of age, and he's still, you know, a very good shot blocker. But going back to QP has issues defending up higher on the ball screens. And then on top of that, I think help side wise, he hasn't really been in the correct spots, you know, in the right possessions, or sorry, in the right, how do I explain this? Like, pretty much he's not in the right spots at the right time. That's it. So pretty much like he's either late rotating over, or he's either getting beat too easily on closeouts, or he's just not doing his job like defending in space all that well. So, you know, QP, he has taken a leap. Like, we can acknowledge that, but, there are still some glaring weaknesses in his defensive game that he still needs to address in order for him to like actually be like a real starting center. Because right now he's starting for the Warriors as the center, but he's still not really good enough to be a starting center. And then when you think about his offensive game, the jumper, like, I honestly don't know what to say. Like, I don't know. Like, it feels like it's a mechanic issue, but I don't see anything like totally, like completely different in his jump shooting. So I think it's just one of those things where it's like he's just got to make his shots, because there's nothing different in the quality of the shots that he's getting. So eventually, like, the law of averages, like, they got to come back and try to even things out here, because we're halfway through the season and he's still like below 35%. So if he can't make shots, like, I don't know what else he can really do. But another thing that I do want to shout out about his offensive game is just his touch. He actually has a really, really nice floater in the middle of the floor. Like, when he catches the ball 2 feet in the paint, especially off a pick and roll, he knows how to like either find shooters one pass away, or he can just put up a floater and it's money. Like, I don't know what the percentages are, but I'm willing to bet you like it's one of the best in the league. And I think the coaching staff should encourage him to take more of those shots. And then on top of that, he needs to look to attack mismatches more. Like, if a smaller player is switched onto him, he's got to go to work. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't let those possessions go to waste. So, yeah. Last thing I'll talk about, Buddy Hield. Been out of the rotation for many games now, and for obvious reasons, and for good reasons why. But I think in this game, he provided a lot of good energy. He's still an airhead. Like, I still stand on what I've said about Buddy Hield in the past. But Buddy Hield, he's certainly a fake shooter. But one thing you can never take away from him is the fact that, like, he competes. Like, he might be the worst transition offensive player in NBA history. But one thing you can never say about him is the fact that he does not care. Or the fact that he does not play hard. Like, the guy is always sprinting in transition. He's always ball pressuring. He's always crashing the glass. Like, he's the type of player that's always hustling. And you can never knock that away from him. But, despite all of that, we still got to get rid of him. I'm sorry, but like, that $9 million contract that he's on, that's going to land us a good player in return. And Buddy Hield, as much as he's like a vibes guy where like him and Jimmy, they have a good, they have like a good love-hating relationship, we got to get rid of him. I'm sorry, but like, in order for this team to become a good team, Buddy Hield is one of the assets where we got to get rid of. And when you think about the fact that he's like 33, he's not really a deadly shooter that he once was. Can't defend, can't handle the ball, can't do anything else. Like, there's just no reason for us to continue to keep him on this team. And, we're not going to keep him on this team just because he dropped 33 in Game 7 last year. So, yeah. So that's it. That's all I have for this podcast. It was a good win for the Warriors, albeit it was the Charlotte Hornets. But we have good momentum. We have good momentum right now. I think we're 5-1 so far in this homestand, and we have the Miami Heat coming up next, who just Andrew Wiggins just hit a game-winning shot against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're not really in a completely different position than we are right now. Like, we're mid in the West and they're mid in the East. So, there's history between them and us. Like, Wiggins used to be on our team and Jimmy used to be on their team. And, Jimmy, he was ducking the smoke last time. So, it's going to be a big game. If Jimmy Butler doesn't play, I don't know what to say. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't duck the smoke the first time and then, duck the smoke again and then duck the smoke the third time. So, yeah. It's going to be a good one. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'll have more podcasts coming soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.